Well, I think we're headed for economic disaster at every level of government for the rest of our lives. So
have a great weekend, everybody.
I'm thinking I better stop at Costco and renew the membership and stock up on tuna fish.
They are a member, so please do.
If you look at public opinion polls, Governor Tim Pawlenty has had the highest popularity ratings consistently of any governor in the modern era of polling. And the reason I started with my gloom and doom scenario, I think that when historians look back, the next generation of Lori Sturdivant, who's a wonderful historian of our state, look back and understand the cosmic picture of the times. This particular governor faced historic budget deficits 3 times. And Democrats hated it, and he said, no new taxes, and I hereby incorporate everything Greg Pepin just said. We've got a good track record here at almost every unit of government that the more money you spend does not necessarily result in better results. And so to hold the line there, I think will be his legacy. Policy-wise, there's no much money. Blois flagged this green stuff, the jobs stuff. But in my view, and I'm openly lobbying the governor for what I said earlier, too many layers of government, too many units of government in those layers. Let's go for the big, bold, decisive action and build government to accommodate the 21st century. I sound like Bill Clinton.
I've been thinking a lot about what this decade will look like 50 years from now. And I do think that the hold the line on government growth will be part of what we'll talk about from this period. And certainly, as Tim Pawlenty himself assessed his legacy, passing out a list of accomplishments to the press corps the day he announced he would not run again, I think bullet points 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all about, in one way or another, holding the line on government. So he thinks that's an important part of his legacy. But I'm bullish on Minnesota's future, and one of the reasons I am is because of what we invested at the University of Minnesota in these last few years. The biosciences campuses, the bioscience research that is being, I see heads nodding around the room here, that's encouraging to me. That, I think, will be this decade's proudest legacy as we attempt to secure a good place for Minnesota in a big new future industry for this state. The state's role in that was very important, and I think that's our proudest legacy, something that we didn't even much talk about. I remember the day that bill was signed, the governor didn't even highlight it. But what an important thing we're doing at the University of Minnesota. We're already seeing a payoff near Rochester with the Elk Run research investment that's being contemplated there. There will be a lot of Elk Runs if the University of Minnesota is able to complete and fully invest in that biosciences campuses. So on that basis, and maybe a bunch of others, I remain quite bullish on Minnesota's future.
Greg, what do you see as the governor's legacy? Or maybe it's yet to come next session?
I think he was obviously not as successful as he wanted to be on that, in this particular area, but education reform. I think he did throw out a number of proposals, that many of which met with legislative resistance. They were big, they were meaty. He continues to do that. One of them is what Sarah talked about, it's the online learning. I think that's a big issue. I think that's not getting enough play. I think it deserves more play, and I applaud the governor for his efforts in that.
Okay, one quick, we're going to do rapid round here because I don't want you to think about it too hard, and it would be so rude of me to ask you who the next governor will be. So instead, I'm going to ask you to say who's going to be on the ticket and whether or not we'll have an independent. So, Sarah, I know you've thought about this.
I think on the Democratic side, it will be Mark Dayton. I think the mystery question is how much money does Matt intend to spend before he realizes he can't be elected. On the Republican side, I'm going to say that I think the candidate who will be at the top of the ticket is not yet announced and not even on the list.
Do you know who they are?
Short answer.
Of course she does. That leaves it wide open. She just covered every base she had. On the Democratic side, since Sarah said Mark Dayton, I will say that I don't think that's the case. My top 3 on the Democratic side are Speaker Anderson Kelleher, Senator Tom Bach, and St. Paul Mayor Chris Coleman. On the Republican side, I'll go out on a whim here. I know I have a legacy here to uphold about Michelle Bachmann, and so I'd hate to lose that legacy. But if Michelle Bachmann runs, it will be for the heart and soul of the Republican Party, and the future of the Republican Party in this state, in a way that you have to be reminded that 2010 is whether or not the Republicans pivot in this state to a minority party for a short period of time, or to be more of a, if they keep the governor's office or retake the House in some way or the Senate, then they're. But if you have a Democratic governor and a Democratic House and Democratic Senate and 2 Democratic senators in Washington, redistricting looks really tough for Republicans. And so I will say the top 3 there are, Michelle Bachmann. Brian Sullivan announced he's not going to run yesterday. I think that's a significant move. And then I'll put my dark horse out there, and I think she's been working at it hard, but the support she's rallied strong, and I think Republicans feel like they have to put a woman on the ticket, and that's State Rep Laura Broad.
Lori?
Well, I like Blois's list, so I'll echo that, although I think Mayor R.T. Ryback is also someone to watch in the Minneapolis, the DFL side, rather. I think there'd be a great, with a bow to my friends in the room who are males and running for governor, I think there's a hunger to put women on the ticket with that particular glass ceiling not yet shattered. A feel in both parties, I think, for that. And as for the Independence Party, please read my Sunday column.
Oh, good. Lori never shamelessly promotes. Good
Seriously,
for you, Sturdivants.
She didn't ask me to do that, really. Great.
I think that Lori's right, at least with regard to the DFL, and I'm far from an expert on internal DFL politics. I think it's going to be very difficult for them not to put Speaker Kelleher up. I think there's such a pent-up demand on that side. With regard to the Republicans, I'll just say that I'm going to be with my friends. They're all my friends, and I don't know how that's going to shake out. We've got a multiplicity of candidates. That's a great thing. The process will be very well served by this huge amount of candidates. It's great, and just stay tuned.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you to all of our panelists for being
Good
here
job,
this morning.
Danette.
Thank you. And so that does wrap up our program. It also concludes our 2008-2009 Legislative Breakfast Series. So thank you to all of you for making these successful. And final thank you to our sponsors, Grand Casino Mille Lacs and Hinckley for our series sponsor, Center National Bank, Dolan Media, NIOP, TCF Bank, Voyager Bank. Have a great day and a fabulous weekend.